And I think you had another question in the back?
No, I think it's been answered.
Is that good? So let me just make sure everybody understands. There are two ways in this state and all across the country. There's not a national registry. UNOS just doesn't go and say, we've got all of these OPOs and these state registries that are connected to our computer system. So here in Virginia, it's done through the DMV. So you go into the DMV, again, by state law, they're required to ask you, would you like to be an organ donor? And that's how that heart gets on your driver's license. And if they don't ask you, they should. Call it to their attention, because they're supposed to, right? And you can do it at the DMV, or you can go online and do it at donatelifevirginia.org. And it's the same website that the DMV has that you can do it yourself. And you just sign up to be an organ donor.
I just thought of another one, yes. You said that there was no age limit as a recipient. Is there an age limit as a donor?
No, there's not. And in fact, and again, we don't set an age limit, but there are age limits that are sometimes and often set at some of the transplant centers, in that they feel uncomfortable doing it beyond a certain time frame or age date. And a prime example of that, I've talked to some of the surgeons that 10 years ago, they didn't really like doing heart transplants past the age of, say, 50 or 55. They just didn't think that the patients lived much beyond that. Well, now they're finding huge success. There are people that have heart transplants at 60, 62. And that's when it gets a little, some transplants centers will do them higher age and some won't. And it just really depends on that transplant center. And a lot of that information is on our website as well. And I've got him, and then I'm going to get to you. Yes?
With all the matching and everything that goes on, what is the rejection rate?
That, and I don't have an overall percentage on that. I really don't know. I can tell you that because of the LAS score that we have now, that system for matching, that it doesn't happen often. Usually the rejection happens further down the road where they've picked up some type of viral infection, because after transplant, you have to be on drugs called immunosuppressants that suppress your immune system. And the reason you have to be on those drugs is so, very simply put, if you get a splinter in your finger, your body is like, wait, that little piece of wood doesn't belong there. And it gets an infection, try to push it out of your body, right? Well, it does the same thing with lungs or heart or kidney. It goes, wait a minute, hey, Lisa, you weren't born with that kidney, so I'm going to get an infection in you to push it out because it shouldn't be there. You weren't born with it. So immunosuppressant drugs push down that ability of the body to do it. But when you suppress the immune system, you as an individual are more susceptible to different bacterial and viral infections, and you pick up stuff. So oftentimes what will happen, you can get a real life-threatening bacterial or viral infection, and you get a choice. Do you save your life because the bacterial or viral infection is going to kill you, or do you stay with the immunosuppressants? And a lot of times what they have to do is come off the immunosuppressants in order to fight that infection that they may have. And when you come off those immunosuppressants, well, then your body starts to reject the lungs or the kidney or the liver. So it's this constant balancing act. So after transplant, you've got to be very careful about your health. You really have to look after it. You've got to take the drugs, and you've got to keep yourself into social situations so that you're not prone to pick up viral infections. And Russell, I know you can attest to that, is you think about things differently. Yes?
What would prevent you from being an organ donor? Obviously, my lungs is 27%, not too many people want. But I also have leukemia.
A lot of people have, it's a very personal question, and everyone's different as to why they would not want to do it. But for those that I've had conversations,
My question is, would I be accepted as an organ donor?
would you personally, to give your lungs? Probably not. No.
Yeah, but would go in your eye?
Oh, yes, yes. I thought you meant just for your lungs, yes. But that's exactly right. So what we tell people, because people will say, another thing, if you've had cancer within 5 years, you can't be an organ donor. You have to be cancer-free for 5 years. However, you're coming up on the 5th year, or it's going to happen. You're going to be cancer-free for 5 years. Go ahead and sign up, because then what happens is we know your wishes, and what happens is if and when the time comes, they'll take a look at those organs. It's like, okay, well, the lungs are great, but by golly, that liver and that kidney, they're great. They're going to go to somebody in need.
Well, like I say, I have leukemia, but it's also in remission.
Mm-hmm. So that's exactly right. And, I don't know. I think I'm healthy. I would tell you standing here, I'm the healthiest person in the world. And they get in there and by golly, they might decide that the liver and the kidney and the lung and the heart, maybe they're not as good as I think they are. You really don't have any idea until a trained doctor takes a look.
You don't receive an organ, you're gonna be healthy.
That's-
We'll give it to you, you're not.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, yes.
I was considering donating my body to MCV.
Mm-hmm.
And could I also be an organ donor?
It works if, it's a great question, I get it a lot, and that's through, there's a place on the website, not our website, but through the state medical examiner's website that you can donate your body. It's the Anatomical Gift Act, I believe is what it falls under. And the simple answer is no. You really have to choose one avenue or the other. Because what happens is when you're gifting your body to science, it's for research. And so they want everything there for students to learn from, for medical professionals to learn from. And so if you start taking out the liver or the pancreas or the kidney, then not everything is there. So.
Howard's had pneumonia 29 times.
Mm.
I don't think they want my lungs.
Sometimes 8 or 10 times a year.
Wow.
That's my brother. I think you want MCV look at it, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
I-
Anybody? Oh, I'm sorry,
I
yes.
just had a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of, and I don't know if politically you can do this, but just raising awareness and getting people thinking about organ donation, because we're here because we have issues.
Right.
There's a whole population of very healthy people that I know until my disease progressed, it's something I never thought about, no one in my family has ever even discussed. So, and you mentioned DMV, but now pretty much everybody renews online. So you're not at the window with the person saying, do you want to do this on your card? So
And-
are you
yeah.
aware of anything that
There are
goes
huge
on in
campaigns
Richmond
that are
to-
all over, and in fact, we as an organization, about 15 years ago, became so into the awareness to sign up to be a donor, it has spun off to its own organization. It's called Donate Life America, and that's all that it does, is it makes people aware and works with different organizations across the country for folks to sign up and to register. Work heavily with high schools, with kids that are learning to drive, and so when you're going through that process for the first time, to educate them. And we also work heavily on college and university campuses with that group, because again, to your point, they're young, they're healthy, they get the whole idea of, and basically this is recycling, for lack of a better description. It's just the young generation gets it.
Thinking about going through
So-
churches and that sort of
And we reach out to church groups. Coming up later on this month, on the 14th, 15th, and 16th, it's called National Donor Sabbath. And during that weekend in November, we ask area churches, state churches, churches across the country, it's National Donor Sabbath, to bring in the topic of organ donation and transplantation into their sermons, and help us to help educate their congregation members. So that's coming up the 14th, 15th, and 16th of November.
coming weekend, right?
So, I'm sorry? Is that this weekend? Yeah, it is this weekend.
And
I've lost
that's-
track. I'm still thinking this is the beginning of November.
That's from Donate for Life, you say?
It is, that is actually through a lot of different organizations. UNOS is involved in as well, but it's called National Donor Sabbath.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So-
How do we get on your UNO donor list, not donor list?
Like the board that I was talking about, the board,
Website.
No, how do we, oh, you go to the website?
there are two ways.
Sign up that you want, an organ, no, help me.
What do you,
I
you
need to, I'm
You
going
want-
through due for transplant. How do we,
you want information?
I wanna know how we get on your list to get an organ.
You can't do it. You have to be registered through your transplant center.
Okay, I got
You
it.
as an individual cannot do it. It comes through your transplant surgeon and your transplant center.
I got it, thank you.
Yeah. We deal just with the centers. And it's got to be, I mean, you may think, I'm sick enough, I need to be listed. It's up to your transplant surgeon and the center
And
to
they
list
do it,
you.
we don't have to ask them to please do it?
They, when
do
you
it?
get sick enough, I'm not in those shoes, but I would say, hey, at what point do you think I need to be listed? Where is that? Where do you see that? I think it's a valid question to ask. Russell, how did that question come up with you? Usually it's when you get so sick, they're like, look,
Well, you think you're sicker than you are.
yeah,
And that rating system came in effect the year I was, see, I started working for Transplant in 2004, but they didn't list me until August of '09.
Oh, so you got hit with the new.
They changed the rules with the LAS. Prior to that, you got on a list and you moved up to somebody.
Because you'd already been there so
died
long. Yeah.
Or died. You moved up. And when they decided I needed a transplant, the two closest hospitals to Richmond had stacked the list. And the doctor said, you need to go, you don't have 18 months
Yeah.
to live. You gotta go somewhere where somebody doesn't stack their list. So I ended up at a Nova, and I only waited 8 weeks. And he wouldn't put me on there until August.
Because that's when the new system went in, and then your LAS score was so high, you went to the top of the list.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great to know that you were, that's part of your face of transplantation, Russell. You got a story to tell, young man.
But I want you to say, you asked a question about these people when they get on the donor list. But let's say I'm at my deathbed and I have not got anything to do but donate. There's a group of people that will come in and try to sell my family on donate. You want to cover that? LifeNet and how they come in and try to,
Yeah, LifeNet is the local OPO,
and they're going to come in and talk to your family
and they will.
releasing you for donation.
So let's say that you're in that car accident, you're taken to VCU Medical Center, and doctors do everything they possibly can to save you. But then they realize that your injuries are just too severe, that they're not going to be able to. LifeNet Health is the organ procurement organization that